Our current panel now is State of the Industry. We've added a special guest, Mr. Robert Allen, so we can get the lawyerly perspective on things. And here we go. Okay, so we've got Kevin Ralph from Worth Avenue as a broker, Andrew Tuhan, refit management, project manager, Bob Allen, attorney at law, maritime specialist, and Chuck Ashman, chief revenue officer from MarineMax. So my first question, I'm going to take a cue from Steve Noodleberg and say, tell me something good about the state of the industry. Kevin Ralph.
Well, I think it's definitely improving. I think sales are improving across the board. Europe's picking up, which I think will create some interesting dynamics over here. But all in all, new boat sales are definitely increasing, possibly due to lack of product in late model used boats. But the good news is I think sales are up across the board.
Andrew.
So tied in with that, as there's a lot more sales, there's a lot more refits. As soon as the owner purchases the boat, they want to change it. They want to change the soft goods or do other things. As far as refit goes, we've been quite busy the last 5 years. It's steadily increased. Summers are normally slow, but at the moment we've been pretty busy all the way through. Normally we get to take a break at this time of year, but it's not the case, which is good. My last refit was in excess of $10 million, and that was over an 8-month period, and that was all done right here.
Good one.
American.
Bob Allen, tell us something good.
Even if I don't have an accent like these guys?
Yeah, just use your charming self.
We've seen in our business, which I think is reflective of the business in general, last year was pretty tough, the last 6 months. But we've seen a definite change. So right now we're too busy. We don't have enough staff really to get things done without going to sleep at 11 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning. So something is going on. And what we've seen also is that there are more Western Hemisphere people buying European boats. I mean, literally today, we have 2 deals going on where the closings will be in France. And I think we just closed one yesterday where, I don't know where the boat was, but it was in Europe, and we've got another one that's in Croatia. We see a lot of stuff happening from this side going that way. And I was at a conference about 6 weeks ago, and the heads of sales of Benetti and Gulfcraft and Ferretti were there. And when they were asked at a panel discussion like this, what do you see happening? Where is your market? Uniformly,
North America.
United States.
Good one, good one.
It's good news.
Chuck, Chief Revenue Officer, tell us about revenue. Good?
Yeah, nothing to add over what these guys said. It's generally good. Last year was good. The year before that was good. And we continue to outpace last year this year. So almost all categories. And I would agree shortage of inventory is a big driver.
Yeah.
A lot of used boats that used to be in the system are not. So new and used brokerage, everything's
moving
doing well.
right. Yeah. Yeah, I would add to that traditionally I expect around this time of the year my business to slow down as everybody goes into summer mode. They're on vacations, they're on their boats, they're on hold. But I've found myself a spike of business and activity that'll carry through July. So just to echo what everyone here has said. And with regard to inventory, I've often felt I've been watching the numbers. I go to bi.com and to see what's happening, how many sales, and I was really concerned in April. I was like, oh my God, we're not even on track for 200 boats this year, over 80 feet. And then in the last couple of months, there's this massive surge of activity that's coming online. And another question I asked myself was, okay, well, the volume of boats available out there. And it appears that the number of boats on the market, there are fewer of them. They are getting older. And so then the percentage of sales relative to volume we're actually up year on year. Kevin, do you How do you think about that?
Well, using BI, and there's different metrics, but actually year on year from last year is a 9% increase in number of sales. I don't know about the actual dollar volume of sales. But there's different macro markets, as we all know, and we all deal in different sizes and geographic locations. But there's definitely, the tide is changing or has changed in certain segments of the market where it's now becoming a seller's market as opposed to what it's been for years, which is a buyer's market. So that is definitely shifting in several different marketplaces.
Right. Andrew, with your refits, what would you say is the average age of the vessel that you guys typically see coming in for an upgrade?
Pretty much anything over 10 years, because there was a lot of boats that come out pre-financial crisis. That there was a lot of boats getting bought and sold. And they were, after 2008, a lot of the maintenance went down. And people, mothballing boats, and they weren't using them as much. Everybody scaled back. But the last 5 years, they've scaled back up again. And, boats go on the market, boats change hands, and then everything keeps moving again. So it's improved a lot. We are looking at 2 or 3 projects right now that are all in the 10 to 20 year range. And they're all in excess of, 500,000, and it's all maintenance that's
Deferred maintenance?
Yeah, not even soft goods. It's like shell plate, pipes, things that the owner doesn't really see, but he can't use his boat unless it gets fixed. So that's a downside of putting a boat, or mothballing a boat, or leaving it idle. So we're starting to see, that's why the refit business is pretty busy right now, because we're starting to see those boats come through and get more active again. As they get active, things start going wrong.
Right. And Chuck, how is your business at Marine Rex? You guys have how many different brands do you represent?
Approximately 20.
20
We
brands.
go from small boats, pontoons, to
Right on
we
up there.
delivered 2 Benettis last month.
So which trend have you noticed, say in the last 12 to 18 months, which brands are I heard Sea Ray is strong and whatnot, but are there particular ones that have gotten stronger that you didn't expect to?
Well, I think Steve Gale touched on Boston Whaler, and Boston Whaler has grown tremendously. The whole outboard segment is just crazy right now. It is outpacing every other segment in the boat business, and the average sale with Whaler, which used to be $50,000, is now $200,000, which is, when you start talking about $1 million whalers, and they build 50 a year, and there's a 6-month waiting list. I mean, those type of things are pretty significant. Those are good margin boats because there's no used pressure out there. There's no field inventory that's dragging you down. If a customer wants the boat, they've got to step up and order it. And you don't get that forever, but it's nice when you do have it. Mm-hmm. Another segment, anything with innovation, there's some new asthma that are out there that are very nice. And when you come up with new innovation, either through a layout or materials or propulsion, all of those things bring buyers out of the woods.
Or do you see some of your manufacturers or builders being at capacity and unable to meet demand? Are we at that point?
Several are expanding. Whaler just expanded, Scout just expanded. Sea Ray's moving within they had factories that had capacity. From the downturn, there's a lot of factories that have additional capacity right now. So capacity isn't an issue. It's the workers, somebody touched on that before, finding, when the downturn came and the industry went to a third of the size that it was, we lost a ton of craftsmen, and they're not getting back in the business.
Okay.
They went on to whatever else they're going to do, and there's not that next generation. I don't believe anybody in the millennials wants to be a tradesman. They don't want to be an electrician.
Okay, so we've got a shortage of skilled labor, boat builders and the like, you're seeing?
No question. I think that's one of the biggest threats to our business is who's going to build these things, and then not only that, who's going to service them once we sell them.
And when we hear the politicians talk about retraining workers and job initiatives, are there any efforts within the industry that you know of to create apprenticeships and whatnot like they do in Holland?
We did one. We did a Marine Max University hosted out of one of our stores. We took 5 apprentice technicians, put them through for a year. They all just graduated, and they all went out into 5 different stores. But I'm telling you, that's heavy lifting. You're not gonna supply. We'll lose as many as we can replace.
Okay, so a big challenge for the business.
Our average age on our technician has gone up 10 years in the 25 years I've been in it. They're all they're all getting into their 50s, and they're just not as proficient as they were before. So it's a real challenge for us.
Interesting, wasn't aware of that. Bob, in your company, what's the average size of vessel or valuation? Can you talk a little bit about the type of deals you see coming across your desks? And are there any trends there that you could spot?
I think the trend for us is that the boats are getting kind of bigger. There's, as growing up, a big boat was a lot smaller, right? And you're seeing it in the transactions that we handle. We're routinely handling transactions 100 feet and up. I guess people tend to use lawyers a little bit less on smaller boats, even if they're expensive. And when I say smaller, I mean, I say it, tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
An 80-foot boat is a big boat.
Yeah.
A 70-foot boat, a 54 is a big boat. Geez, I can't afford one. So I'm certainly not a new one.
I can help you.
Yeah.
I know a guy.
I know a bunch of guys.
I certainly can't afford a new one, but if you give me a good deal and I use one, we're all right. So we see.
Let the record show I brokered this deal.
It used to be in our firm that the partners handled the bigger boats, right? And now our senior associates are handling regularly boats over 100 feet. So there's a lot of activity in that size. There really is.
Right. And you do a lot of work with new builders, Benetti, San Lorenzo, Ferretti, and so on.
Right. The core of my practice has historically been higher-end production builders.
Higher end production.
Right. That's been the core of my practice, and then we moved into the brokerage industry with our affiliation with you guys, and one of our clients bought a big brokerage. So, but if not for the brokerage business, when new boat sales were toast, we would have been toast. So Thank God for the yacht brokers in this room that keep doing deals.
Exactly. So on the new boat side, in your work with the builders, how is that relationship today versus, say, 2 years ago? Are there any significant changes that would impact the way we do business or that we should be aware of as brokers who are doing both new and used boats?
I think ultimately all business is built on relationships. And when you've got to focus on those relationships, it's not really any different. The people may be different. So, if a big European manufacturer reorganizes or has new owners or new managers, you're in a hiccup phase because you don't have that personal relationship with the head of sales. Mm-hmm. But the ultimate truth is that if you have an excellent relationship with someone at the factory or at their distributor, you're going to be able to make a better deal. So I don't really see anything different except that sometimes personnel changes. And everybody in the industry knows what companies have had the personnel changes.
Right. Kevin, what is your perspective on when you look at the new potential new build market, European builds, U.S. builds, as a broker? What do you like? What opportunities do you see, in a macro sense? What sort of trends have you caught on to, or you think are trends?
Well, I think the issue is the trends, and someone said innovations that are coming out of Europe are far surpassing as what's been in the States. And I think that's driving the sales between lack of inventory, late model inventory because of the slowdown from '08, and then the trends, whether it's beach clubs, fold down bulwarks, et cetera, et cetera. The Americans really haven't led or followed even to what the Europeans are doing in form of innovation. So I think the innovation across the board, certainly the Europeans are leading that charge. And I think the American boat buying public has followed as a result. And you're seeing more yards, even in Europe, are building on spec. So the lead times are shorter. So between that, the currency close to equity that it got to, it's starting to slide a little now. But that's why you're seeing so many Americans that are buying over in Europe right now.
Right. Andrew, when we talk about innovation and the fleet being older, On some of these boats, I often say they're functionally obsolete because they're just so far behind the curve of what's available today. When you're doing refits, what do you see? You see people requesting balconies, boosting the size of swim platforms, modifying the general or the GA or the layout of boats. What is there any trends there?
What we see is a lot of extensions of 8 to 10 feet, maybe 12 feet to get that beach club, the fold-down transom, things like that. Normally, if a client comes to us with something like that, we'll tell them, okay, let's plan it 6 months out, have everything ready, because the time factor, we want to have the opportunity to have everything ready so that their downtime is decreased. But you know, the hardest part for us, the biggest challenge is that they don't want the downtime. The owners obviously want to use their boat. So we try and pre-plan as much as we can. And a job like that, we'll tell them straight out, okay, you know, you're not going to have your boat for 6 months, but we need time to prepare before we go into the yard. One thing I would like to say is that from the brokerage side, what we come across a lot is that the owners will buy the boat and they go straight into the yard. What I would like to see more is that the broker tells the owner, let's go, use the boat for 2 weeks, go to the Bahamas, have fun, tell us what you want. Do you really want a swim platform? Do you really want a beach club? How are you going to use the boat? So let them go out, use the boat, find what they're comfortable with, and then go into a yard for a refit. Because too many times we've had to pick up the pieces of an owner's taken over a boat, and 2 years later he hasn't even used it. And that's not good for the industry, for any of us, because we want them to keep using their boat and be happy.
Good point, very good point. Just to take a quick poll here of the yacht brokers in the audience, how many have sold a boat that's gone into refit or upgrade or currently have one in refit? Okay, so quite a few there, that's good, all right. One of the observations I've made and seen is that there seems to be a lot of Asian money, a lot, relative term, but when you think about the numbers going in, it's a lot of money, being invested in the yachting game, and in particular in Europe. San Lorenzo has Chinese or Asian investors, Ferretti, Camper & Nicholson's now. How do you see that playing out? Do you think we're going to see more of that over time? Bob, I'm looking at you.
Well, I don't want to talk about politics, right?
No, it's not about politics. It's transnational investing.
Anybody who's seen my Facebook page knows that I have no reservation about talking about politics.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. What I hear is the Chinese economy is slowing down, and our economy is revving up, and the strength of the dollar is high, and the strength of the whatever they call it, the
yuan or renminbi,
is weaker.
Yeah.
So it's it's innovation that's leading towards driving some of the European product. It's also the strength of the dollar. And British, we're doing a British boat now. And so, I mean, the Brexit was supposed to be bad for them. Maybe it is, but if your boats are cheaper to buy, right, you're going to see the Brits go up, and I think there's some Asian money over there as well. So I don't know. I don't know. Speaking purely as an American, I hope they don't buy everything, right?
Okay. That's it?
That's it.
All right. That was a tough question anyway. It was a tough question. Kevin, which yards right now, when you look over there, everyone talks about Northern European pedigree, but we've got Italian yards, Dutch yards, turquoises, made a big push and big investment. Which yards do you like? If you want to present something as an alternative to a Northern European build and the related cost, which is your go-to yard? Do you have one that you like?
I don't really have a go-to yard because I think it depends what fits the criteria of the client. And budget's only part of it. Resale obviously is a big issue. How the yard deals with warranties can be a huge nightmare with a lot of the yards. They have a great paper warranty, and that's about as far as it goes. So it really depends. I think turquoise is definitely a yard to watch. I think with the common ownership with Oceanco really don't want to do anything under 90 meters, which is kind of crazy, but that's where they're focused on. And because of that, turquoise is picking up the slack. And you look at value for money, if they can start getting some of the systems and quality that the Northern Europeans are putting in. And let's face it, most shipbuilders buy common components. So it's the labor issue that's really driving it, which is a lot less expensive in Turkey, as long as you have the oversight. I think there could be some good value in that. You brought that yard up. And there's some up and coming yards in Italy as well. Cantiere del Marche, I think, are doing a great niche market in their expedition and sort of crossover motor yacht end of things. And I'm doing a build at Rossi Navi as well, which is a 60-plus meter boat, and the quality there is very good.
Yeah,
so it's a small yard that's kind of under the radar.
Excellent, excellent. Chuck, when you look at the industry now, and I'm kind of curious about MarineMax being a publicly traded company and how you guys approach your planning. How far out do you look for trends that you're going to react to or plan for?
We have to look way out. I'll do annual forecasts, like a rolling 12, and we'll review them quarterly. We're bigger than all of our manufacturers now, and given the percentage of business that we are of most of them, if we miss, it could be catastrophic to the builder, right? As when we were a $200 million company, it didn't matter, but as we've changed, we do a rolling 12 forecast on every brand that we carry, and and we review it internally more than you ever should. I mean, you talk about choppy, right, with April and May and June, and it's there are some headwinds out there right now. And
where do you see those headwinds coming from?
And some of the, it's hard to nail that down. I think politically, if we could get a couple victories under the administration, see some forward progress, that glass that was half empty that immediately became half full will be even a little better than half full. But
if we had tax reform and corporate tax rates go down, from what I've seen, nobody's expecting 15%, but if it went down to, at what threshold would it make a meaningful difference to MarineMax, and what would you guys do with that windfall, theoretically?
Well, we would always look to invest, right? We actually are in a good position where we've got a strong balance sheet. We have cash for acquisitions if we need to do it. We would pay down debt and we'd look for more acquisitions. We wouldn't outbuy. We would look for the solid acquisition, but the biggest thing is all our customers just got to raise.
Manufacturing acquisition, or what type?
No. More either dealership, marinas, more in our wheelhouse.
Gotcha.
We've looked at manufacturing, but I don't know that that's on the near horizon. That'd be complicated for all of our other 20 partners.
Sure. Exactly. Exactly. I want to shift things a little. We got 5 minutes. Okay. All right.
Questions?
One moment, please. I would just want to touch on something briefly. I had a conversation with Bob earlier about the migration of American money going and looking for boats in Europe. And one of the initiatives that's being spearheaded now by our president, Paul Flannery, is our push into Europe, given that we're now international or intergalactic, as some would say. And the EBA contracts and forms, kind of homogenizing that. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Well, we look at these with some regularity, but we haven't had a modification for a couple of years. And with the new title and the reality that American buyers are buying over there, we're looking right now at how we can amend the contract or change it, or so that it can be used more easily in Europe. Right now, it's usable in Europe. We see Americans making offers on the FIBA contract, what we still call the FIBA contract. We see resistance among European brokers, but they ultimately bend, and we put an addendum on their contract that turns it into our contract. But the idea as we internationalize, is to give them a document that has some of the bells and whistles that theirs has. It keeps kind of the transaction-friendly aspect of our agreement, but the concept is that it will attach some things that are typically in their agreements. They tend to be very specific about what types of certificates you need and this type of thing. And we're going to have to, obviously, our contract right now has a default of dispute resolution in Broward County, and we're going to have to look at how we, give, if it's European American, there's going to have to be a negotiation as to where the dispute is settled. Normally, it's not a sale from a Brit to an American. And normally, it's an Italian or a Frenchman or something. So dispute resolution in London works for them. The question is what rules will be used. But we're gonna fine tune it so that when a European broker gets it, they're going to be comfortable. You probably remember when we introduced the new FIBA contract, there was some resistance among the brokerage community. We had to do a lot of effort to really teach people why this new detailed roadmap would facilitate transactions and avoid litigation. I think we're going to do the same thing with the new version. We've got our first draft out there under discussion, and we should be getting it out there fairly soon.
Okay, good one. All right, we're going to wrap things up. Questions from the audience for any of our panelists? Gentleman in the back, to the left there.
Hi, I've got a question on the refit side because we hear it all the time as captains say the boat's for sale. So what's your take on the maintenance and upkeep? Should it be the new owner's responsibility to take on that list that the captain's sitting on?
Okay, you mean in terms of deferred maintenance?
Yes.
Well, from my perspective as a broker, that you've got what's disclosed by the seller and or his captain, and then you've got what's discovered on the survey, and it becomes a negotiating standpoint, something to be discussed. And it's because there's ongoing maintenance and there's deferred maintenance. If the boat has stabilizers and they're not working, well, that's kind of deferred maintenance. If the 6,000-hour service is pending on a motor, then that's, ongoing maintenance is how I would look at it. Did I answer your question correctly? Yeah. Okay. Any more? No? Okay.
Well, I would like to add to that, Jeff. I think we need to do a better job as EBA to come up with some guidelines, because every time after survey sea trial, it's a new round of negotiations. So if the oil and the oil filters need changing or the bottom needs painting, you're not buying a new boat. Who's responsible for that?
Yeah.
And I think if we come up with some basic guidelines, it helps everyone. It helps the brokers, it helps the buyers, it helps the sellers. And I don't think we've done a good enough job to kind of put that
Make it a more
forward
transparent discussion.
Yeah, so people understand. I mean, it needs bottom paint.
Mr. Buyer.
It needs zincs. Now, if it has no zincs and there's holes in the props, okay, it's a slightly different situation. But when is it the buyer's responsibility and when is it the seller's? And at the moment, it's a free-for-all, and after every survey, you're going to renegotiate points, and I think we can save everyone a lot of headaches.
Okay. We're going to finish up real quick, 10 seconds or less. Which trend is most prominent on your radar right now in your business?
For us, it's boats over 50 feet and large outboards, day boats.
Okay.
That would be it.
Boats over 100.
Boats over 100. Andrew?
Sag Harbor Beach Club, everybody wants a white boat inside at the moment.
Sag Harbor Beach Club?
Yeah, like white boat inside. The
Oh,
interior.
they want to get through that
Lighter
bridge.
interiors, yeah, they're over.
I see.
They're
They want
over
the
the darker
Hamptons
wood.
look.
Everything's more contemporary. It's a lot more beach house feel.
More open. Okay, gotcha. Kevin?
Yeah, I think the larger end of the market, that being 60 meter plus, it's crazy what's going on in the marketplace, and that's creating its own sets of innovations that will eventually trickle down. So I mean, it's incredible what's going on in some of the larger fields.
I would echo that. I see that a lot of the builders in Europe are just full on. Benetti's full on. They have, is it 4 110-meter boats under construction of varying tonnage, the smallest of 4,000, the largest 6,000. Fedship has 17 boats under build. 4 of those are hybrid propulsion, for what it's worth. Amels is doing quite well, Ocean Co. There's a lot of huge investment that's been made in upgrading the capacity to build more boats and bigger boats, and that's all seemed to have been a very timely decision by those yards. And that concludes our panel. Thanks very much, everyone.